Hey guys, it's Dev here again, and today we're going to be looking at this Underbog run. So I'm going to play it back at double speed, and we're going to talk about some prop pally things, some tanking things in general. So this group here, it's another group I've just found from the Looking for group, and this is more like what a standard dungeon would feel like with just your normal players. We're not trying to do any crazy pulls, we're not trying to do any speed like related things, like obviously trying to keep the pace of the dungeon up. But we're not doing those huge pulls. Okay, so some things to think about that I've noticed so far with Prot Pally is if your group is relatively good at killing mobs, you're not going to have Avenger's Shield up for each and every pull. And your group is going to get used to actually having those Avenger's Shield pull where you're going to have a good amount of burst threat on each target. So I think one of the most important things you can do early on, if you don't have if you do have a regular group to play with, is actually educate them on small things. Like if they see that flying shield, they can open with a multi-shot. You know, they can do an early seed of corruption, whatever it might be. If they don't see that, the mobs have to stand in the consecrate for a few ticks, and you can tell them how much your cons ticks for. You can tell them how much threat per ticket does. So the easiest way to work it out, see right now mine's hitting for about 112, which means it's going to be doing about 200 threat every tick. So if they have ability that's going to hit for 1k AoE, they need to wait 5 seconds of consecrate time before they open up, so they're not ripping off you. LE shamans are particularly bad hunters with multi-shots on the pool. As we do get into harder content and it takes longer to kill the packs, it is going to mean that we're going to have Avengers up for most pools, but it's something you can definitely look at early on, helping your group out. So interestingly, these underbats, you can't chain them with anything. If you move them off the ramp, they do attempt to reset, which is pretty annoying. Right now as well in the beta, I did just hit 70 last night. So a lot more content that's going to be coming out of me and my Twitch and my YouTube now is going to be focused on more of the high-end stuff. I've got this and I've got a Sethic Halls video to upload today. So if you want to see more Prot Pally stuff, don't forget to subscribe. And I'm currently working on the pre-heroic full guide too for gear, which is pretty exciting. I'm actually going through that right now, getting the gear myself and making the guide as I go. So pretty happy to get that one out soon. A lot of the focus is when you are tanking these dungeons is mana management. I've got very used to having the unlimited free mana pots on the beta, but I'm definitely going to stock myself a bunch of major manas for when we do this dungeon farm. If money's tight, I suggest you at least get some of the, I believe they're greater mana pots, the level 35 ones. You normally like a couple of S on the auction house. But even though we're not trying to go fast, right, we still want to utilize the Prot Pally's strengths and get a few targets grouped up. I got a little worried there. My healer was drinking behind. I kind of ran ahead. So I just bobbled, waited a few seconds, and then clicked it off. If you do that and you're still on top of the threat and people aren't within that 10% pull threshold, you can set the mobs free for a second. They'll either run to a ranged or turn around and clap a melee. If the melee have full health, it's not too much of a concern in normal dungeons. Click that bubble off. It'll buy your healer a few GCD or two to catch up. I don't recommend it in heroics though. From what I've heard, the heroics are hitting pretty hard and CC is required, so super excited to get into some of them, hopefully later tonight. Alright, so just clearing up the rest of these bog giants here, and then we go into the really annoying side of things. So you'll see I did a few underbogs runs, but I did a lot of slave pens runs. And in my experience so far, like, I understand now why everyone's gravitating towards slave pens, and that's because the mobs don't do anything that slows you down, really. There's some mobs that fear at the end, but that's very controllable. There's mobs that fear at the end of this one, but there's so many more roaming packs, and when you do get feared, it's like you've drank a sprint potion. You actually go flying down the hallway. Okay, so just chaining pulls together. Healer mana in TBC is really good. Like, you can kind of just go and go and go, especially if you have a healer that understands down ranking, that understands like they're not flash healing the whole way. Another thing as well you can do as a Prot Paladin is to, if you're playing with someone that can't get rid of poisons, so like a priest, and this will be easier when we have add-ons, is to actually dispel poisons for them. I think I did another run after this with another group where I got pretty good at it. I still don't have my mouse over macro set up. It's pretty annoying not having access to your add-ons on beta and having to remake every single macro that you do need. But yeah, we're punching through this relatively quick. We're at 13 minutes, not setting any records. It was a pretty good group. I'm really enjoying the new dungeons, to be honest. The pacing of them, the layouts, the mob structures. I definitely think there is going to be, once we start getting some gear, there's going to be the opportunity to go pretty quick through a lot of them. I'm still waiting on more of that spell power and defense gear that kind of fills both roles. Because if I try pull too much at the moment, I do feel squishy, and I'm still having to make a decision: am I in mitigation gear or am I in spell power gear? But this Avengers set, it carried me all the way to 70. I'm still wearing it. Like, I have off pieces ready to go, but it's just it's pretty well-rounded gear. It's all enchanted, so it's done me very well. Okay, so Gazran, I just focus away from the group, just nuke it down. Nice healing cloak there. So up here you'll find the second NPC, the first NPC for this quest, this side of the quest. He's just up there to the left. If anybody's on the quest, that's where you find him. And this is when we find the Fenrays. So these are the mobs that have that terrible fear I was talking about. And you'll witness that in a second. So there it goes. Watch the pet. Absolutely takes off. And I know this isn't double speed, but you're running literally like you've got a sprint pod on when that goes off. And it is dispellable. So you'll see our priest here is pretty good at dispelling those. They're the roaming packs. They do like a stacking poison. I think as well, like, a lot of these dungeons will be made very easy with voice, so we can kind of tell our intention. Like, okay, I want to pull this pack back. The group knows like not to open up. Like right there, I did want to pull that Fenray pack back, so the wasps didn't walk into it. But the second I pulled, the shaman was just boom, chain lightning. So I'm also going to talk as well in an upcoming video about ways to get mining up. So if you are going to dungeon grind and you do have gold to support it, that looks like there's going to be a way with very minimal world grinding in Outlands to be able to dungeon mine. You see me there sit down and drink just a tick of water. That's a really good strat if you've got a lot of mage water, or you have a mage in your group. I know a lot of people they wait until they're complete Yum to drink. And you can always like just afford the time to get a tick in, and if you do that between each and every pack, it's just going to keep your average mana like so much higher. Stuck in combat, just trying to drink a little. Stun as well. One of the biggest helpful abilities I've found in these dungeons is Hodge, and also knowing when you need to tank something and when you don't. So a lot of tanks that I've watched and in my experience, they'll have something marked as a skull. It'll be like 20% health and it'll be running towards the DPS. It's going to be dead in like five seconds maybe. Like probably won't even reach the DPS. And they'll run over there, they'll chase it down, they'll drag everything like with them. It's just like there's no point. Like just let it go. Like the DPS have ways to control mobs if they're good players. They have ways that they can CC, they can slow, they can trap, they have movement abilities. Like I know we're fighting elites, right? But when you're out there in the world, the exception would be if it's going for a healer. I think you always want to kind of like provide that support to your healer, because at the end of the day, if they're getting knocked back, you're in a messy place. So I'll use my Hodge, I'll use my Bop if a healer's getting hit. We now have Taunt. It does look like they've updated the Taunt on the beta as well, so you can actually just cast it at enemy targets now, without the use of a macro, which is interesting because the tooltip hasn't been updated to reflect that change. And another thing as well, I would recommend for any Paladins, I did play a little bit of Ret from like 67, 68-ish, just to get a feel for it. And I realized when I did that, there was a lot of items that I didn't take in dungeons that would have been a really nice item to have for my Ret set. Alright, so final boss. This is an interesting one. So it looks like it picks the person who's second threat up. And I have had DPS rip off me on this on the pull, and I've been the one to get flicked through the air. So this is definitely a place where you want to let your DPS know, yo, just give me a second. If we can get Vengeance up and Wisdom on the boss, we are in a really good position to hold really good threat, but that does affect our burst threat a little bit. Alright guys, cool. So that was the run. That was just basically showing you what a normal run looks like. I do have a masterclass coming for all the dungeons where we're going to go through each mob, each pull. Hope you enjoyed it, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.